Hi, my name's Andy Shepherd from Plymouth Medical. Thanks for purchasing your Porter Nitronox device from us. I'm going to spend the duration of this video explaining how to put everything together. A couple of key components that you will need to help you on your journey. Number one, a knife or a box cutter. As you can see, there are a number of boxes to be opened, and actually inside those boxes are more boxes, so save your fingers. Number two, a Phillips head screwdriver. In the pack we actually supply a wrench and we supply a hex key. For whatever reason they do not supply a Phillips head screwdriver, so get hold of one of those and a box cutter and let's get opening. Whilst I was unpacking the boxes, I came across a couple of very important things. One is the user's manual and the instruction manual on how to put everything together, and then there's also the user's manual that talks about the head unit maintenance and how that all works. And these are obviously quite important documents, so I would keep these, make sure you put them somewhere safe. In the container that had the basket, there was the wrench, which we're going to need right away. It's one of the first tools that we're going to need, so get that and have that available. And then there was two small white boxes. One of them has this contraption in it. Basically this is what attaches the head unit to the frame. In that pack also comes the key, which is the key that you use to turn on the gas cylinders. But also in there is the Allen key, or the hex key, and we're going to need that straight away. So make sure that you get that out. So we've got a wrench, we've got a screwdriver, and we've got our Allen key, and we're ready to go. As you can see, attached to the top of the pole and taped on there pretty securely are the nuts and bolts that we're going to need to attach the pole to the base. The base is obviously pretty standard, looks a little bit like an office chair base. This slots in there, and then you're going to need the wrench, as we discussed earlier. It's a 15mm socket wrench, and you're going to need the components that were attached there to the pole, and that is just a spring screw setup. And so what that basically means is you have a washer, a split screw, and your bolt. The bolt have a little bit of paint on there, which is deliberate, that stops it coming open. And the configuration is obviously washer and then split screw, and that very simply attaches to the bottom here. And so I just put that in here, get it down a little way, finger tightness is good enough, and then just put the socket on top. You can just rotate it like that. Probably what is easier is just to spin the whole thing. And I'm just going to keep doing this until it's locked into place. There's the base. Oh, nice and tight. And you can see, good and solid. Now that we have the base nice and secure, it's time to start adding the components. If you look at the diagram of the system, which is included numerous times in all the different literature that comes with it, you can kind of see how it works. But basically we're going to start, we've got the base, we're going to start with the gas tanks, then the basket, then the handle, then the head unit. Kind of makes sense, you want the heaviest stuff at the bottom. And so we're going to start, and we actually need the Allen key to get us started. The tank holders come like this. These things are screwed pretty tightly together straight out of the box, so you need to kind of undo the screws here and give yourself a little bit of play on this kind of cuff. What that's going to allow us to do is to seat it and slide it all the way down onto the pole. You want to give yourself a couple of inches off the bottom. There's no point in having that resting right the way down, but you don't want it too high up, because bear in mind there's going to be quite a bit of weight sitting on here. And then we're going to tighten this up. And it's wise to tighten it a little bit on one side, then a little bit on the other side, so that you get like a nice uniform grip all the way across. Bear in mind that two tanks, a tank of nitrous and a tank of oxygen, weigh quite a bit. You don't want to tighten it up so much that you're going to break the Allen key, but by the same token you don't want it so that the tanks could slide down. So nice and secure there. It doesn't really matter which way they're pointing at this stage, simply because we can just build everything else point in different directions, but I'm happy with that. That's nice and tight enough. The next thing that goes on is the basket, and so for the basket you're actually going to need the screwdriver. The basket comes like this out of the box. On the front there are these little hooks, that's how you know which is the front and which is the back. Back also has this little bracing spar, and you get two of these things. You see them? And basically, same sort of principle, basically they're going to slide down, but they need to be attached to the basket first, and that's simple. You just angle it and slide it on there, and do the same on this one here. Now, they're supposed to go top and bottom, and what I find is when you slide it down, this bottom one comes up, so you have to split them apart. That doesn't really matter. But again, out of the factory, these things are a little bit tighter than you might expect, so give them a couple of turns with the screwdriver just to loosen the bracket off. I'm hoping that's enough, and then that's going to just sort of slide down again over the pole. There you go. And again, if you look at the instructions, so that the tanks are going to be pointing kind of out that way in all of the diagrams, and for obvious reason we have the basket kind of this way so that you don't get tangled up in it. The basket can go as low as high as you want. And then very simply, it just needs tightening up. There you go, there's somewhere to store your disposables, your instructions and your cylinder keys. So there we have the tank holder and we have the basket. So we've now attached the base, the tank holder and the basket to the frame. Next thing is the handle. In the instructions, the handle points off to the side. You can point it whichever way you want. I find that it doesn't actually interfere with the tanks if you put it kind of pointing this way. It's the way it seems to make the most sense to me. Out of the factory, you're going to have to loosen off the Phillips head screws that are holding this kind of clamp together. This is pretty self-explanatory. Just drops over the top, put it to whichever angle you want, kind of squeeze it together and tighten it up. A few turns on each side, and do it again same as before, uniformly. So do a few turns on one side, a few turns on the other. Great, now we have everything attached to the frame. It's time to attach the contraption that holds the head unit on. In one of the white boxes, the one that had the Allen key in there, there is a component that looks like this. It's in two parts. Usually it comes actually like that in the pack. This component is kind of the thing that everything else sits into, and so very simply that just drops onto the top of your of the pole, and then you spin this around to line up, and there's three little holes there. This just lines up with those three holes. In this pack you also have three screws, and so you can just screw into each of those holes to hold this unit onto the top of the pole. So now that the top piece is screwed on, I still have the other contraption here. That obviously is going to seat in there, but it's this thread bit that is important. I like to back this down just a little way, because that screws in. This is the bottom. I've just taken the machine, put it in upside down so I can use it. This screws in here, and I can see that it screws in. Screw in some way, and then what you can do is you use this screw to tighten it, so you tighten it up against itself. That is that. Then that basically just sits on top. There we go. If you go around, eventually you will find that there is a little Allen key hole there, and you can tighten that up. And what that basically means is that head unit is now very firmly secured. It will rotate a little bit, but it won't come off. It's worth knowing where your Allen key is in case you ever need to take that top piece off for transportation, but for the most part you will not need to. You want to keep this as attached so that there can be no risk of losing it. In one of the bags you get a couple of other components, and these are things that are attached to the side of the head unit. In that pack also you get 4 screws. These are index hold, so basically you can't accidentally put the clamp on the wrong side. The holes don't line up, whereas they do line up here. And so we just simply need to attach the this is the hose clamp on one side. So on one side of the machine we have the hose guide, and on the other side of the machine we attach the demand valve. Now the demand valve is removable, and that's done very deliberately. If you need to secure the machine, if you have some concern about people abusing or stealing the gases, This demand valve, you can remove it and lock it in a drawer, and that makes the machine completely unusable. And it comes with this kind of gated system. You've got to bear in mind that you want the gas to come out the front. This is where the hose plugs into. So if you get it into your head that it fits in like that, then this can only go on one way, right? And so that just simply clicks into place. There should be a little satisfying click. The gate closes behind it, and it stops you being able to manipulate the valve, and you simply screw that shut. And then again, this is indexed so that you can screw this onto the machine. The last thing we need to do is attach the breathing valve to the head unit, the mixer unit, and that's done fairly simply. The thing is pretty well packaged, so you remove that, and this simply pushes on and clicks into place. There we go. And that connects the two together. I'll do a separate video with the attachment of the gases because you probably want to have that separately. But today we've found out how to put together the Porter Nitronox from the base all the way up. And if you have any questions, feel free to give us a call at Plymouth Medical. Otherwise, I hope that was fairly easy. Thank you very much.